Captain Li Jin pressed his face against the observation window of the exploration ship New Dawn. The dying star ahead cast a weak orange light across space, making everything look old and tired. His crew had been traveling for 3 months, mapping empty systems at the edge of known space. "Captain, I'm picking up something strange," called Navigator Park Subin from her station. Her fingers danced across the control panel as she studied the readings. "There are structures on the third planet, big ones." Kim Da-yun, the science officer, looked up from her screens with wide eyes. "The energy readings are very weak, but they're definitely artificial. Someone built cities down there." Jin felt his heart beat faster. Finding alien ruins was exciting, but finding living aliens was the dream of every explorer. "Take us down slowly. Full sensors." As their ship dropped, through the thin atmosphere, the crew gathered at the windows. What they saw took their breath away. Crystal towers reached toward the sky like frozen lightning. Beautiful bridges connected floating platforms that glowed with soft blue light. Even though the structures looked ancient and damaged, they were more beautiful than anything humans had ever built. "Captain, I'm detecting life signs," whispered Communications Officer Yoon Hana. "Lots of them. They're still alive down there." Jin ordered the ship to land in a clear area near the largest city. As the engines powered down, he could see tall figures moving between the crystal buildings. They walked with grace despite their obvious weakness, their silver skin catching what little light the dying star provided. The landing party consisted of Jin, Da-un, and 2 security guards. They wore their best diplomatic uniforms and carried translation devices. As they stepped onto the planet's surface, the thin air made them feel dizzy, but their suits provided extra oxygen. An alien approached them slowly. He was taller than any human, with long arms and legs that moved like a dancer. His silver skin seemed to glow from within, and his large eyes held wisdom that made Jin feel like a child. When the alien spoke, his voice was like music, even through the translator. "Welcome, strangers. I am Elder Veltar of the Cathara people. We have not had visitors in many years." The alien's words were polite, but Jin could hear deep sadness underneath. "I'm Captain Jin of the human ship New Dawn. We're explorers from Earth. We didn't know anyone lived here." Veltar's expression changed to something like surprise. "You came here by choice? You were not ordered to check on us?" Jin felt confused. "No, we're just mapping this sector. Should someone have been checking on you?" The alien elder was quiet for a long moment. Around them, other Cathara had gathered, but they kept their distance. Jin noticed that many of them looked sick and hungry. Some of the younger ones were so thin they could barely stand. "Captain Jin," Veltar said finally, "how much do you know about galactic politics?" "We're new to space travel. We've met a few alien species, but we're still learning." Veltar nodded slowly. "Then you do not know what happened to my people. We were once great philosophers and peacekeepers. For thousands of years, we helped other species solve their problems and end their wars. Our wisdom was valued across the galaxy." The elder gestured toward the dying city around them. "But wisdom does not fill treasury vaults. Philosophy cannot power war machines. When our homeworld was destroyed by a cosmic storm 50 years ago, our allies offered to help us. They brought us here to this world with a dying star and promised to return with supplies." Jin felt a cold feeling in his stomach. "But they never came back." "Oh, they came back once," Veltar said with bitter laughter. 5 years ago, representatives from the Galactic Council arrived. They told us our situation had been resolved. They said we were economically obsolete, and that resources could not be wasted on species that could no longer contribute to galactic prosperity. Da-yun gasped. "They just abandoned you?" "We are not the only ones," Veltar replied. "This is how the galaxy works, young human. When a species can no longer provide military strength or economic value, they are quietly relocated to dying worlds and forgotten. It is considered practical and efficient." Jin looked around at the beautiful but crumbling city, at the proud but starving aliens, and felt anger burning in his chest. That's horrible. How can they live with themselves? They call it survival. Of the fittest, Veltar said. They believe compassion is weakness. Hana's voice crackled through Jin's communicator. Captain, I have the Galactic Council on long-range communication. They're asking about our mission here. Jin looked at Veltar, then at his science officer, then at the sick Kithara children watching them from behind crystal pillars. He made a decision that would change everything. Tell the Council we're conducting extended research. Hana, also contact our supply ships. Tell them to load everything they can carry. Food, medicine, construction materials, everything. Captain, Dayun said quietly, the Council specifically told us not to interfere with resolved situations. Jin turned to face his crew, his jaw set with determination. Then we're about to become very good at not following orders. Elder Veltar stared at the human captain with amazement. In 50 years of abandonment, no one had ever chosen to help them. The news about the Kithara spread through human space, like fire and dry grass. Within 2 weeks, Captain Jin's report had reached every human colony, space station, and exploration ship in the galaxy. What happened next surprised everyone, including the humans themselves. Commander Park Min-ho was leading a routine patrol near the industrial world of Xerion 7 when his communications officer picked up a distress signal. It was weak and scattered, coming from the planet's smallest moon. Sir, the signal is not in any language our computers recognize, reported Ensign Cho Hya-young. But it's definitely a call for help. Min-ho ordered his ship to investigate. What they found on the moon's surface made his blood run cold. Massive factories and workshops sat empty and broken, their metal walls covered in strange symbols. Inside the largest building, they discovered hundreds of aliens lying on crude beds, their bodies covered in painful sores. These aliens looked nothing like the graceful Kithara. They were short and stocky, with thick arms built for heavy work. Their skin was gray and rough like stone, but their eyes held the same deep sadness Jin had seen in Elder Veltar. The alien who approached them moved slowly, each step clearly causing pain. Through their translator, he introduced himself as Foreman Clyton of the Zephyrians. You are the humans we have heard whispers about, Clyton said, his voice rough with sickness. The ones who helped the abandoned. Min-ho knelt beside the alien, leader, trying not to show his shock at the creature's condition. What happened to you? Clyton laughed bitterly. We built half the galaxy's greatest structures. Our engineering made impossible things possible. For 3,000 years we worked with the Hegemony Corporation, building their cities, their space stations, their weapons. The alien coughed and Min-ho noticed specks of blood. But when the war ended and they no longer needed our skills, they said our contracts were complete. They brought us here for temporary housing, while they found us new work. How long have you been here? Asked Dr. Kim Soo-jin, the ship's medical officer. 15 years, Clyton replied. The sickness started 5 years ago. It spreads through the air but only affects Zephyrians. Very clever, very specific. We think it was designed for us. Dr. Kim's face went pale. They poisoned you? Biological. Warfare disguised as natural disease. Much cleaner than execution, and it gave them time to steal our industrial designs before we all died. Meanwhile, on the other side of the galaxy, Lieutenant Colonel Song Ye-jin was investigating strange reports from the Harmony's Edge system. Her scouts had detected what looked like abandoned settlements on 3 different moons. When her team landed on the first moon, they found something that broke their hearts. Thousands of aliens sat in perfect silence, their hands pressed to their throats. These beings were tall and thin, with skin that shimmered like water and faces that looked almost human except for their larger eyes. The aliens communicated through hand gestures pointing to drawings carved into the walls. The pictures told a horrible story. These were the Melodic Collective, beings whose songs could heal minds, end conflicts, and bring peace to entire star systems. One of the aliens, introducing herself through gestures as Harmony Singer Symphonia, managed to make small, painful sounds. The translator struggled with her damaged voice, but the message was clear. Their vocal cords had been deliberately destroyed. Sonic weapons, Dr. Park Ji-won reported after examining several of the aliens. Very precise. Designed to damage only their specific vocal structure. They can still hear perfectly, but they can never sing again. Symphonia drew more pictures in the dirt, showing ships arriving and taking away young melodic children. The translation came through broken and sad. They took our young ones to study their vocal gifts, said they could build machines to replace us, cheaper than keeping us alive. Back on Earth, Admiral Choi Dae-sung sat in his office reading report after report. Each human exploration team was finding the same thing. The builders, master architects who had designed beautiful cities across the galaxy, were dying slowly, on a world with poisoned water. The memory keepers, living libraries who had preserved the history of 100 civilizations, were trapped on a planet where the atmosphere was slowly destroying their ability to remember. Every single abandoned species had the same story. They had been valuable partners, respected allies, essential contributors to galactic civilization, right up until they became inconvenient. Intelligence Director Im So-young placed another file on the Admiral's desk. Sir, we've identified the pattern. Every major galactic power has done this. The Council, the Hegemony, the Trade Federation, even the Peacekeeping Alliance. When their partners stopped being profitable or useful, they found ways to get rid of them quietly. Admiral Choi looked up from the reports, his face hard with anger. How many species? At least 30 that we've found so far. Probably more. Anike, Admiral stood and walked to his window looking out at the stars. And nobody else cares? We sent diplomatic inquiries to all the major powers. The responses were almost identical. They all say it's practical resource management, and that emotional decision-making is a sign of species immaturity. Admiral Choi turned back to his aide. They think caring about others makes us weak? Yes, sir. Ambassador Telvasti from the Council said, and I quote, "The humans will learn efficiency in time, or they will join the abandoned." The Admiral was quiet for a long moment. Then he smiled, and it was not a pleasant smile. Contact all human colonies and military commands. Tell them we're about to show the galaxy what human efficiency really looks like. Admiral Choi Dae-sung stood in the Great Assembly Hall on Earth, looking out at representatives from every human colony and space station. The massive room buzzed with angry voices as people discussed the reports from across the galaxy. Images of abandoned alien species filled the wall screens, showing the suffering that had been hidden from the galaxy for decades. They left them to die like garbage, shouted Governor Shinbora from the Centauri colonies. How can anyone call that practical? The Galactic Council says we're being emotional and stupid, replied Captain Oh Soo-jin, her cargo ship uniform still dirty from her latest rescue mission. They say caring about others will destroy us. Admiral Choi raised his hand for silence. The room grew quiet as hundreds of faces turned toward him. Behind him, a holographic map showed 17 human worlds already converted into refugee centers. 3 weeks ago, we learned that advanced civilizations across this galaxy throw away their friends like broken tools, he began, his voice carrying clearly through the hall. They told us this is normal. They told us this is smart. They told us we would learn to do the same. He paused, looking around the room at faces filled with determination and anger. They were wrong about us. The crowd erupted in cheers. Admiral Choi waited for quiet, then continued. Operation Sanctuary is now our highest priority. Every human ship, every human world, every human citizen will be part of this effort. We will find every abandoned species, and we will bring them home. Captain Oh Soo-jin stepped forward. Sir, I've already converted my entire cargo fleet. We can transport thousands at a time. My Marines are ready to provide security, added Colonel Bae Jun-seo. Some of these rescue missions might be dangerous if the Council tries to stop us. Dr. Jeon Yoon-ji, one of Earth's top medical researchers, stood up from the crowd. The Zephyrian plague is engineered to target their specific biology. Give me 6 months in a proper lab and I'll find a cure. Admiral Choi nodded. You'll have whatever you need, Doctor. What about the Melodic Collective? Cultural Ambassador No Hyejin raised her hand. I've been studying their songs from the recordings we recovered. Their vocal patterns are incredibly complex, but I think I can learn them. If we can understand their music, maybe we can help heal their damaged voices. The planning session lasted for hours. Every human leader wanted to contribute something to the rescue effort. Factory managers offered to retool their production lines to make medical supplies and housing. School teachers volunteered to help alien children learn human languages. Even children sent messages offering to share their toys and rooms. But not everyone was happy with humanity's choice. Within days, the Galactic Council imposed heavy trade sanctions on all human colonies. Ships carrying human goods were turned away from major ports. Diplomatic meetings were cancelled. Ambassador Quan Tai-hyun was formally thrown out of the council chambers and told never to return. "You are making a terrible mistake," warned Council Speaker Mordeth during an emergency transmission to Earth. "These species were abandoned because they had nothing left to offer. You waste precious resources on creatures that should be allowed to die naturally." General Han Woo-seok, humanity's top military commander, responded from his headquarters on Mars. "We're not interested in your definition of natural. We choose to help those who need help." "This emotional weakness will destroy your species," Mordeth replied coldly. "When your resources run out, when your economy collapses, when your people starve because you fed others first, you will understand why we make practical decisions." General Han stood up slowly, his eyes never leaving the alien's face on the screen. "Then we'll be destroyed doing what's right, but we will not abandon people who need our help." The transmission ended with Mordeth's shocked expression frozen on the screen. No species had ever spoken to the council that way. The rescue operations began immediately. Captain Oh Soo-jin personally led the mission to save the dying Cathara from their failing world. Her cargo ships, now fitted with medical facilities and sleeping quarters, made trip after trip through dangerous space. Council ships tried to intercept them twice, but human military escorts made sure the refugees reached safety. On New Terra, Dr. Jeon Eun-ji worked 18-hour days in her laboratory. The Zephyrian plague was incredibly complex, designed by the galaxy's best biological weapons experts. But humans had something the weapons designers never expected: genetic adaptability that allowed human bodies to produce the exact antibodies the Zephyrians needed. "It's working," she announced after 3 months of exhausting research. "Human blood can carry the cure. We can save them all." Meanwhile, on Harmony Station, Ambassador No Hye-jin sat with Symphonia and 12 other melodic survivors. She had spent weeks learning to make the complex sounds their species used for communication. Now, as she hummed their ancient healing songs, tears ran down the aliens' faces. "The songs still work," Symphonia whispered through her damaged throat. "Even in human voices, they still heal our hearts." The news reports from human space showed something the galaxy had never seen before: alien refugees working alongside human citizens to build new homes. Cathara philosophers teaching human children about wisdom and patience. Zephyrian engineers helping humans build better tools and machines. The abandoned species were not burdens. They were teachers, friends, and partners. But the most important, change was invisible. For the first time in galactic history, someone had chosen compassion over profit. Someone had chosen to lift others up instead of casting them aside. The galaxy would never forgive humanity for showing them what they could have been. Professor Lee Seo-jun wiped sweat from his forehead as he stared at the impossible machine, humming in front of him. The laboratory on Haven Colony buzzed with activity as human scientists worked alongside their alien partners, but everyone kept glancing at the strange device in the center of the room. "The quantum calculations are perfect," whispered Elder Veltar, his silver fingers dancing over holographic equations that floated in the air. "Your human mathematics combined with our philosophical understanding of spacetime creates something new." Beside them, Zephyrian engineer Clayton tapped his thick fingers against metal panels, listening to sounds only he could hear. "The engine. Design is solid. My people built the frame, but your humans added flexibility we never imagined. It bends without breaking." Professor Lee looked at his readings one more time, hardly believing what he saw. "The quantum resonance drive actually works. We can travel between stars in hours instead of months." Dr. Park Ji-won burst through the laboratory doors, her face bright with excitement. "Seo-jun, You need to see what's happening in the medical wing. The melodic healing sessions are doing something incredible." They rushed across the colony to the medical center, where Dr. An Yu-jin was performing surgery on a human patient with a damaged brain. But she was not alone. Symphonia sat beside the operating table, her partially healed voice creating soft, complex harmonies that filled the room. "Watch the patient's brain scans," Dr. An said quietly, never taking her eyes off her work. "The melodic frequencies are guiding my hands to exactly the right places. It's like the songs are showing me things I could never see before." On the monitors, the patient's brain activity showed patterns that should have been impossible. Damaged. Areas were healing themselves, guided by vibrations that seemed to know exactly what needed fixing. "The songs don't just heal," Symphonia explained through her damaged throat. "They enhance. They help other beings reach their full potential. We never understood this could work with humans until now." Across the colony, in the military training center, Admiral Kim Jong-soo watched human soldiers practice new battle formations with Kythera advisors. The ancient philosophers had spent thousands of years studying conflict and peace, and their tactical knowledge was beyond anything humans had imagined. "Violence is not about strength," explained Kythera strategist Zendara as she moved holographic ships around a battle display. "It is about understanding your opponent better than they understand themselves. When you know what they will do before they do it, you can protect instead of attack." The human soldiers nodded as they watched enemy formations crumble against defenses that seemed to predict every move. These were not just new fighting techniques. They were new ways of thinking about protection and survival. But the real test came when the first trade delegation arrived from the Hegemony Corporation. 3 massive ships dropped out of hyperspace near Haven Colony, their weapons powered down but clearly visible. The same corporation that had poisoned the Zephyrians now wanted to make deals with their rescuers. Captain Yu Jinna met the delegation in Haven Colony's main conference room. She sat at a table with representatives from all the rescued species, while the Hegemony negotiators took seats across from them. The lead negotiator was Envoy Morkaleth, a tall, insect-like creature with clicking mandibles and cold, calculating eyes. "We require immediate access to your new propulsion technology," Morkaleth clicked, his translator making his voice sound mechanical. "Galactic law states that strategic technologies must be shared with council-approved corporations." Captain Yu smiled politely. "That law applies to council members. Haven Colony formally withdrew from council jurisdiction last month." The envoy's mandibles clicked faster, showing his anger. "You cannot simply leave the galactic community. You are bound by treaties and trade agreements." "Treaties signed by Earth's government," interrupted Elder Veltar, his musical voice calm and patient. "But this colony is independent now. We choose our own laws." Morkaleth turned his attention to the Kythera elder. "You should be grateful we are even acknowledging your continued existence. Your species was classified as economically obsolete decades ago." The room fell silent. Every human in the room felt their anger rising, but it was Foreman Clayton who spoke first. "You poisoned my people and stole our designs," the Zephyrian said quietly. "Now you want to steal from our new friends too?" "Business is business," Morkaleth replied. "Sentiment has no place in practical negotiations." Captain Yu stood up slowly. "Then let me be practical. You have 5 minutes to leave our space before we demonstrate some of our new defensive capabilities." The Hegemony delegation stormed out, but their parting words echoed through the room. "You cannot hide forever. The Council will have your technologies one way or another." After they left, Professor Lee turned to his alien friends. "They're going to try to take what we've built by force, aren't they?" Elder Veltar nodded sadly. "This is how they have always operated. When they cannot buy or steal what they want, they simply take it." "But they don't understand what we've really built here," said Symphonia, her voice growing stronger. "This is not just about new machines or weapons. We have built trust. We have built friendship. We have built something the galaxy forgot how to make." Admiral Kim Jong-soo looked around the room at humans and aliens working together, sharing knowledge that made everyone stronger. They're going to learn that some things are worth fighting for. The war was coming, but humanity would not face it alone. The attack came at dawn across 17 systems simultaneously. The hegemony's war fleets, supported by council species, who had grown desperate for the technologies their former partners, now denied them, struck at the heart of human space. Fleet Admiral Park Taemin commanded the defense from his flagship Unbreakable Bond, surrounded by the most diverse fleet in galactic history. Human destroyers flew alongside Kythera wisdom ships, while Zephyrian-enhanced battle stations provided support with weapons that defied conventional physics. All ships remember your training, Min transmitted across the battle network. We fight not for conquest but for the right to choose our own friends. The first wave of enemy ships expected to face desperate refugees and their naive human protectors. Instead, they encountered something unprecedented: perfect tactical coordination guided by Kythera philosophy, weapons enhanced by Zephyrian engineering, and human determination amplified by melodic battle songs that turned individual ships into instruments of a greater symphony. Captain Hong Dabin, commanding the frigate Second Chance, watched enemy formations crumble against defenses they couldn't understand. It's like they forgot that the species they abandoned actually learned something in all those centuries of survival. The battle lasted 3 days. When it ended, the attacking fleets were not destroyed but disabled, their crews alive but their ships powerless, drifting in space. It was Elder Veltar who suggested mercy, and the humans who ensured it was shown. Months later, Ambassador Lee Sora stood before the reformed Galactic Assembly in the new capital of Harmony Station, built by Zephyrian engineers in orbit around the human world of New Earth. Representatives from dozens of species, many recently rediscovered on forgotten worlds, filled the chambers. Today we establish the Covenant of Stars, she announced, not based on what each member can provide, but on the promise that none will be abandoned, that when one falls, all will help them rise. In the audience, the old council species sat, silent, some with delegations so small they barely filled a single row. Their empires, built on exploitation and abandonment, were crumbling as their former victims found new homes and new allies. The Kythera had a saying: "The strength of the chain is not in its strongest link, but in its refusal to abandon the weakest." Humanity had learned this truth and, in doing so, had taught it to the galaxy. As Captain Jin looked out at the stars from the observation deck of Harmony Station, surrounded by friends from a dozen worlds, he smiled. They had saved the abandoned species. But in the end, perhaps those species had saved humanity from becoming something far worse.